Wait 1 sec, Rose. I just
going through public question time.
Public question time, and so Denise is Debbie's all over public question time. Been and seen this before.
Yep.
Maestro.
Yep, all good.
Welcome to our ordinary meeting of Council at Tallangata on Wednesday the 22nd of March 2023. If I could ask everyone to be upstanding for the opening prayer. Almighty God, we ask that you be present at this meeting to assist us in our service to the community through local government. We pray that our decisions will be wise and taken with goodwill and clear conscience. Amen. Item 2, Councillor and Officer presence at the meeting. We have all councillors at the meeting and
Liz Payne and Mr Heiner are not present today.
Mr. Rightio, very good. So we have Miss Phelps and Miss Gadd. Item 3, apologies and granting of leave. Nothing. Disclosure of conflicts of interest. No conflicts. Item 5, confirmation of minutes. We have a recommendation there. Would someone like to move motion? Councillor Warman.
Mr Mayor, I'd like to move that the minutes as circulated be confirmed for the ordinary council meeting held on the 22nd of February 2023 and the special council meeting held on the 8th of March 2023.
Thanks, Councillor Warman. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Scales. Anyone opposed? All in favour? Carried. Petitions and joint letters? Nil. Public question time. And so I believe this is the most questions we've ever had. So,
Thanks, Mr Mayor. We've had 3 submissions for public question time, and I'll go through each of those in turn. The first being from Mrs Glenys Bruce, which was submitted on the 8th of March, and the subject is in relation to road issues, and the question is the condition of the road as a result of the quarry trucks, and we are speaking about Georges Creek Road. If you like, I can respond to each of those in turn.
yes, I think that'd be it.
Sure.
Best.
So, in terms of the road and the volume of quarry trucks, there has been an increased number of trucks that we're aware of, and this is primarily due to the road construction activity that's occurring on Georges Creek Road and Wisers Creek Road. So there is a permit in place in relation to the Georges Creek Quarry, which is operated by TCM, and there are restrictions on them in terms of that planning permit, but that doesn't restrict other trucks from travelling on the road in order to do the roadworks and other activities within the area. So what we'll do is put something in writing back to Mrs Bruce in the next 5 days in relation to that.
Thank you. So,
Next one.
next one.
Next one is from Dr Sean Mulcahy of the Rainbow Local Government Group. Now, the questions are as follows. Question 1, thank you for taking the opportunity to meet with the Rainbow Local Government team. Will Council fly the rainbow flag on 17 May this year to mark International Day Against Homophobia, Biphobia, Intersex Discrimination and Transphobia, even if from a temporary flagpole? And question 2, will Council establish an LGBTIQA+ community advisory group that can work with the Council to incorporate LGBTIQA+ diversity and inclusion within the existing budgeted activities? For example, a pride film in the movie night series or a morning tea to mark Ida Hobbit at Utalangata or Corryong Library. Now, Dr. Mulcahy actually spoke with council at the last council meeting that we had, and we talked through the various activities that we could partake in or arrange. Our Director of Community and Planning has actually been in touch with Dr. Mulcahy since that meeting with council, and had advised Dr. Mulcahy that a report would be presented to the next possible council meeting. We had hoped that it would be this meeting, but due to some staff absences and some other pressing priorities, we haven't been able to present that report, but our intention is that we will provide a report to the next possible meeting of council, and we will advise Dr. Mulcahy accordingly. The next submission is from Ms. Deputy Montany. Question 1 is update on cleaning up. Yes, stove has gone and skips are not sitting on road, but we still have hot water systems, 44-gallon drums behind bus depot, full on unspecified rubbish, and now being covered by weeds, broken furniture behind motel, and loose small bits of corrugated iron behind pub still. Please advise on progress. And the second question is, the invasion of hairy caterpillars into Langata on a yearly basis at this time of the year. What is council's plan to rid us of these dangerous scrubs? We can only do our gardens, but the council trees and gardens need to be sprayed. So in relation to the update or the progress update in relation to the lane, we've had our ranger make contact with a number of the businesses who back onto the lane, and we've also prepared some correspondence that will be going out shortly. There have been indications from some of the business owners that they will tidy up some of the material that they do have at the rear of their premises, and obviously this is not an overnight fix, but we'll be continuing to work with those businesses and residences to make sure that, the clean-up occurs. So that's that one. And then in terms of the hairy caterpillars, we'll need to take that one on notice, so I can speak to one of our staff members who's responsible for that area. So we will respond to Ms. Montany within our 5-day period. Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Item 8, informal meetings of councillors.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Sorry, it's a bit of a yo-yo today. Councillors, we had intended to provide you with those meeting records from February, but unfortunately we're unable to get them into this agenda, so we will present those at the April council meeting. Thank you.
9.1, the performance reporting graphs, and we'll take that as read, but has anyone got any questions or clarification they would like on performance reporting graphs? No? Would someone like to move the motion, please? Councillor Walkman.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to move that the report be noted.
Do we have a seconder? Councillor Anderson. Anyone opposed? All in favour? Carried. 9.2, Audit and Risk Committee appointment extension. And I'll call on our CEO.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. The purpose of this report is to seek council's approval of the extension of Mr. Spencer Rich's appointment to the Audit and Risk Committee, and to extend that term by 1 year. We have 3 of our 4 external independent persons due to have their term expire during the course of 2023, and feel that it's appropriate to extend the term of at least one of those members so that we can have some continuity of experience and knowledge. We did ask at the last audit committee if any of the members would like to self-nominate to have their term extended, and Mr. Rich was the only committee member who did indicate he was prepared to have his term extended by 1 year. Our recommendation is that his term be extended by 1 year, ending on the 7th of September 2024.
Thank you very much. Any questions or clarification? Someone like to move a motion? Councillor Scales.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to move that Mr. Spencer Rich's term with the Audit and Risk Committee be extended by 1 year, ending on 7th September 2024.
Thanks, Councillor Scales. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Dickshay, thank you. Councillor Scales, did you like to speak to that at all?
Not a lot to say on it, Mr Mayor. Probably just that it is good to see at least a little bit of continuity going with the Audit and Risk Committee, so that will be good as we go out to recruit for more people to join it. I would encourage anyone in the community that's interested to please keep an eye out for that.
Councillor Dickshay, anything?
No, thank you, Mr Mayor.
Anyone against? Anyone else like to speak to that? Put the motion. All those in favour? Carried. We stay on Audit and Risk Committee, but this is the annual assessment, and I'm calling our CEO again.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Councillors, the purpose of this report is to present the Audit and Risk Committee's annual self-assessment. The Local Government Act requires that the Audit and Risk Committee provides a copy of the annual self-assessment of its performance against the Charter to the Chief Executive Officer for tabling at the next council meeting. The committee has completed a self-assessment for the 2022 year, and it was presented at the February 2023 Audit and Risk Committee meeting. It's now presented here for your information, and the recommendation is that the Audit and Risk Committee's annual self-assessment be noted. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions or clarification on that report, councillors? Pretty straightforward. Someone like to move a motion? Councillor Anderson.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. I'd like to move that the Audit and Risk Committee's annual self-assessment be noted.
Thanks, Councillor Anderson. Seconder? Councillor Wortman. Would you like to speak to that at all? Councillor Anderson?
No, thanks, Mr Mayor.
Councillor Wortman, happy? Any other comment? Anyone opposed? Put the motion. All in favour? Carried. I believe we have one more. The action sheet reports. We'll take those as read. Any questions? Action sheet reports? Someone like to move the motion? Councillor Scales.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. Happy to move that the report be noted.
Thanks, Councillor Scales. A seconder. Councillor Dickshay. We need to review the camera. Thanks, Councillor Dickshay. I think we're just... Anyone opposed? All in favour? Carried. Bushfire relief and recovery. The bushfire relief and recovery update is presented biannually and will be provided in July 2023. 11's community wellbeing, so 11.1 is emergency management report. And I'm calling on our CEO.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. I'll speak briefly. This is our 6-monthly update on the emergency management activities that have been conducted across the Shire. I guess with the floods, there's been a significant amount of time and effort that's been put into the recovery efforts, both for private and council assets, and the bulk of our time has been consumed with those activities, and the report's presented for your information.
Any questions or clarification on that report? Councillor Wortman.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. I see in the report our MEMSI draft plan has got to go to our MEMSI draft plan has got to go to the REMSI, and there's been a bit of difficulty in getting a chair. I was just wondering how that's progressing.
Yes, thanks, Councillor Wortman. A chair has now been appointed, which is great news, and so we'll be able to progress with the approval of those plans.
Terrific.
Thanks, Councillor Wortman. Any other questions? Councillor Wortman.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'm not sure who will answer this one, but it says in the report, the impending announcement of flood recovery funding from the state government will support the team to meet our needs. Just wondering when that announcement, any idea when that announcement might be happening?
I'm not sure, Councillor Wortman. I'll have to take that one on notice.
Thank you. Thank you.
If there's no further questions, would someone like to move motion? Councillor Wortman.
I'd like to move that the report be noted.
Thanks, Councillor Wortman. A seconder? Councillor Dick Shea again. Councillor Wortman, would you like to speak to it all? Councillor Dick Shea?
No, thank you.
Anyone opposed like to speak to that motion? We'll put the motion. All those in favour? Carried. 12, asset management. 12.1, town walking track and boardwalk project. I'll call on our Director of Infrastructure and Environment.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. This report provides information on the Towong Walking Track and Boardwalk project and provides several options for consideration and recommendation as presented. The recommendation is as presented. Yep.
Thank you. Any questions or clarification on that report? Councillor Dick Shea.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Are you able to explain where the $15,000 per annum estimate for maintenance, what that's based on?
Through you, Mr Mayor. The $15,000 allowance for maintenance of the boardwalk through the water is to do with three times a year to go back and cut all the reeds that we think are going to grow up around the boardwalk and obscure the view and affect a boardwalk that would go through the water, and that includes labour and machinery time for, we think, maybe 2 to 3 people 3 times a year to cut back the reeds, probably using a pole saw.
Thank you.
Any further questions or clarification? Someone like to move a recommendation? Councillor Dick Shea? A motion you'd like to move, actually.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'd like to move a motion in 2 parts. That the project be staged as follows. Stage 1, proceed with the design and tender of a walking track with an alignment which includes a fill pavement between the edge of the Billabong and Brook Street at a lower level of the road. And stage 2, subject to the amount of funding remaining in the project budget after assessment of tenders from stage 1, conduct further consultation with the Towong community regarding the type and location of viewing platform to be installed, in conjunction with the location of the Brolga sculpture, and if necessary, consider a future budget allocation.
Thank you, Councillor Dick Shea. Do we have a seconder for that motion? Councillor Wortman. Councillor Dick Shea, would you like to speak to that?
Yes, thank you, Mr Mayor. The Towong walking track and boardwalk is a key priority of the Towong community via their Community Recovery Committee after the Black Summer fires of early 2020. The community is frustrated at the lack of progress on the track since works first commenced there in 2021 and have subsequently stalled. An important component of the track to many locals is the making of a feature of the wetlands area at the western end of the township by constructing a raised walkway over the water. There are differing views from the community on the type and location of the track in the vicinity of the wetlands, and they are frustrated but understand the financial implications of the various options that have been presented to complete the project. The community is also concerned about the fairness of the original budget allocation of $250,000 for the project and feel that they may have been shortchanged in relation to some other projects. Having said all of that, the current overriding sentiment in the community is just get it done. And that is why I propose this motion to just get it done.
Thanks, Councillor
Thank you,
Diksha.
Mr.
Councillor Walkman, would you like to?
Yeah, thanks, Mr Mayor. Look, I've heard Councillor Dichay, this project has dragged on, but it's going to be a key feature of the Great River Road project, and I agree, we just need to get it done. Thank you.
Anyone opposed? Anyone like to speak against? Anyone else like to speak to the motion? Councillor Scales.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Very, very
It's in the water.
Exactly, as has been said, this project has got to the stage of just get it done. It's bounced back and forward. As we know, we've had a lot of conversations about this project. Perhaps we didn't have a big enough budget built in there for it, but sometimes we've just got to cut the cloth to fit. So, thank you.
There's no further comments. We'll put the motion. All those in favour? Carried. (12.2) is Towing Street East, and I'll call on our Director of Infrastructure and Environment again.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. The purpose of this report is to provide information to support the assessment of tender submissions for the construction of a footpath along Towing Street East to connect the existing footpath to the rail trail on the left-hand side as you're heading out of town. The report also seeks approval to appoint the recommended contractor, and the recommendations are as presented.
Thank you very much. Any questions or clarification, councillors? Councillor Dikshay.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Can I just clarify that the construction of this proposed path benefits existing landowners, not just potential future landowners?
Through you, Mr Mayor. Yes, there are several residents' houses that front onto Towing Street East that currently don't have footpath in front of them. It will benefit these residents.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions or clarification? Someone like to move a motion? Councillor Wortman.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'd like to move the recommendation as presented.
Thanks, Councillor Wortman. A seconder? Councillor Dikshay. Councillor Wortman, would you like to speak to the motion?
Thanks, Mr Mayor. Yeah, look, as it's been pointed out, there is a missing link on that northern side of Towing Street in front of those residents, and the other bonus is, of course, it links to the rail trail. So I fully support this project.
Thanks, Councillor Wortman. Councillor Dikshay. Thanks, Councillor Dikshay. Would anyone like to speak against the motion? Anyone else like to speak to the motion? We'll put the motion. All those in favour? Carried. (12.3) Corryong CBD and Hanson Street upgrade. Again, I'll call on our Director of Infrastructure and Environment.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. The purpose of this report is to provide information to support the assessment of tender submissions for the Corryong CBD Streetscape and Hanson Street upgrades from Sugarloaf Road to Keel Street in Corryong. The report also seeks approval to appoint the recommended contractor, and I'd just like to say that these projects have been a really long time coming and will make a significant difference to the Corryong streetscape, and the recommendations are as presented.
Thank you very much. Any questions or clarification on that report? Would someone like to move a motion? Councillor Dickshay.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to move that the contract for the Corryong CBD and Hanson Street upgrade be awarded to XL Grey Brunei Proprietary Limited for the lump sum of $4,240,306, excluding GST. That the Chief Executive Officer be authorised to sign and seal the contract in accordance with Local Law 1, Common Seal and miscellaneous penalties. That the Chief Executive Officer be authorised to approve contract variations up to the value of the total allocated project budget. And that Council be provided with monthly updates on progress once construction commences.
Thanks, Councillor Dickshay. That's seconder. That's what I'm after, isn't it? Councillor Walkman. Thank you. Councillor Dickshay, would you like to speak to this motion?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. By all accounts, this is the probably the single largest contract that this council's ever awarded, and in a normal period of time is a high percentage of our normal annual capital works budget, and for it to be awarded to one project in one of our towns, it's a major thing. It has the potential to revitalise the access to the town of Corryong, and improve safety, as well as rejuvenating the CBD area. I think it's a fantastic project, and although it will cause some disruption to residents, the overall benefit far outweigh that disadvantage, and I look forward to seeing the completion of it.
We do. Councillor Walkman, would you like to
Thanks, Mr.
speak to
Mayor.
it?
I just concur with Councillor Dickshay. It is a very exciting project, and like you said, one of the largest projects we've probably ever awarded as a tender. And look, I feel very confident through our project management team and our engineers, the project will proceed very, very well. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Walkman. Would anyone like to speak against the motion? Anyone else like to speak to the motion? We'll put the motion. All those in favour? Carried. .4 curbside waste reform. I think I'll call on our infrastructure environment again.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The purpose of this report is to provide information on the proposed changes to the delivery of waste and recycling services, and this is in response to the state government's circular economy initiative. And it includes a review of the bin sizes and collection frequencies to accommodate the introduction of food organics and garden organics curbside collection and a glass drop-off service. And the recommendations are as presented.
Thank you very much. Do we have any questions or clarification on that report? Would someone like to move a recommendation, move a motion? Councillor Scales.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. Happy to move the recommendation as presented.
Thanks, Councillor Scales. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Walkman. Councillor Scales, would you like to speak to the motion?
Very, very briefly, because I wasn't going to move the motion, Mr Mayor, but happy to. Look, FOGO is becoming more and more common right throughout Victoria, if not right throughout Australia. We have heard, probably since we did our last waste services audit to a degree, or survey, which was a large number of years ago, more and more demand from the community that they want FOGO. So it's great to be introducing this into our waste services, and even the adjusting of our waste services. We are going to see benefits into the future for our ratepayer financially. So it is great to see, whilst there will be a slight increase of around $100 per year with the introduction of FOGO and glass recovery. We're doing our thing for the environment, and we will be saving money into the future. So thank you.
Excuse me. Thanks, Councillor Scales. Councillor Walkman, would you like to
Thank you, Mr
speak
Mayor.
to that?
Totally agree with Councillor Scales. Look, I get a lot of questions and phone calls about organics, organic waste, and this will definitely help solve that problem in our town. So, fully support the motion.
Thanks, Councillor Walkman. Would anyone like to speak against the motion? Anyone else like to speak to the motion? I'd probably just like to add there, just to make it very clear that the state government's actually introduced a 4-bin system, and so we're moving in line with the state government's recommendations in what we're doing here. So just like to add that. If there's no one else would like to speak to the motion, we'll put the motion. All those in favour? Carried. It's a bit long. 12.5, Corrion Landfill Report. Again, I will call on our Director of Infrastructure and Environment.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. The purpose of this report is to seek council approval to change the operations of the Corrion landfill in response to the state government's circular economy initiative and changing requirements for the compliance of the landfill under the Environmental Protection Act 2017. And the recommendation is as presented.
Thank you. Any questions or clarification on that report, councillors? Would someone like to move the motion? Councillor Scales.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. I'd like to move that the closure of the Corrion landfill operation by 30th of June 2024 or earlier, as required, be approved, and also that council continue to operate the Resource Recovery Centre and Waste Transfer Station in Corrion with hours of operation as they currently are.
Thanks,
I can
Councillor
circulate
Scales.
that to officers if they didn't get all of that.
Would someone like to second that motion? Councillor Dickshay. Councillor Scales, would you like to speak to the motion?
Thanks, Mr Mayor. The closure of a landfill can be a pretty emotive thing from a community. It can be emotive from two sides. From your environmental side, some people will be extremely excited that this landfill is being closed. There's also the feeling of loss in a community. I don't know what an attachment is to a landfill, but there is a feeling of loss when a landfill is closed. I just want to reassure the community the Resource Recovery Centre and the transfer station will remain. It will basically be no different to exactly what they see with delivering waste to the centre. So it will be business as usual as far as the community says.
Thanks, Councillor Scales. Councillor Dickshay.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. The report tells us that the Corryong landfill is one of the major, or is the major contributor to our greenhouse gases for the whole of the Shire. Climate change is a real thing, and it's important that local governments take a stand and do their bit to contribute to the changing of old habits. And I think this is an important step for us, even if it might not be palatable for some people. We also have the added burden of the EPA and their legislative requirements on us to maintain it to a certain standard, and the extra costs and the burden that would be putting on the ratepayer if we were to continue to operate the landfill. So that is why I support this motion.
Thanks, Councillor Dichet. Would anyone like to speak against the motion? Anyone else like to speak to the motion? Councillor Waltman.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. Look, totally agree with Councillor Scales and Councillor Dichet. As the report clearly shows, the costs of operating the landfill have grown, and the leachate dam, for example, I know it's been a number of wet years, but it is, well, constructing a new leachate dam and removing the excess water is very costly. And as we've found with EPA, building new cells is becoming more stringent in their what they require, and yeah, it's a big impost to our ratepayers. Yes, I agree with this recommendation. Oh, sorry, motion.
Thanks, Councillor Waltman. Anyone else like to speak to the motion? We'll put the motion. All those in favour? Carried. (12.6) Corryong Skate Park Project and former Corryong Primary School site. Calling our CEO.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. Councillors, this report was prepared by Mr Mark Florence, who is a consultant and currently doing some executive project support officer work with Council. As you will recall, we were successful in securing an $880,000, that's a big number, grant from the Federal Black Summer Bushfire Recovery Program in order to construct a new skate park in Corryong. And when we applied for that grant, the initial thinking was that the new skate park would be constructed on the existing skate park, which is adjacent to the Corryong swimming pool. We have conducted a reasonable amount of community engagement in relation to the use of the old Corryong Junior School campus, as well as the location of the Corryong skate park. And I guess what we found through that engagement and survey process is that there is strong support for the skate park to be located at the former junior school site. In terms of the survey results, the survey details 79% support for the proposed location being the junior school site from 181 respondents. And I guess that was based on a number of things. Firstly, that site is central to other community facilities. It's also close to the commercial zone. It's very close to the P12 school, and as well as the new bike track that we have on Players Hill. So this report actually provides a recommendation to you that the new skate park be located at the junior school, the former junior school site. And with making that decision, that will enable us to move forward with the development of the plans for the skate park and also the construction of it. The recommendation is pretty lengthy. I won't read that out, but I'm sure you're right to read that.
Thank you. Any questions or clarification on that report? Do we have someone? Ooh, yep, Councillor Waltman.
Just point 6, the Chief Executive Officer be authorised to finalise and execute an amended lease. maintenance of buildings on the site.
Responsibility for what? Is that, yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Walkman. There's nothing further. Councillor Dickshay.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I've heard a small amount of concern about the risk to the whole site proposed development or master planning by locking in the skate park to a certain part of that precinct. Is Madam CEO able to comment on how she would describe that risk, or the level of risk?
Not quite sure of your question, sorry, Councillor Dickshay,
Yeah.
in terms of what that risk might be. We are undertaking a master plan for that site, and that will incorporate the skate park location as well as the rest of the site and how that might be used for community purposes.
I guess, are we limiting our potential future designs by locking in the location of the...
I guess that could always be argued. Yeah. The unfortunate thing is that we have a significant amount of money that needs to be used towards the skate park project, and if we have had an extension of that time frame as far as the construction is concerned. I guess my concern, I'm probably looking at the Director of Infrastructure here in terms of construction times, but by the time we go out to market, have a design prepared and then go to market with a tender and for the construction, that we may be time limited and not able to meet the requirements of the grant, and therefore forfeit the funds that are available. So it's kind of chicken and egg. It's a bit of a tough one. Although I think the site that has been identified is probably suitable in terms of the topography and how we might be able to use that to get a good outcome for the skate park, and there's still a significant amount of land left on that site for further development. So, yeah,
Thank you.
all I can add. Yeah.
Yep, thanks.
Any further questions or clarification? Would someone like to move a motion? Councillor Dickshay.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. There's 6 parts to this motion.
Would like to move it as presented.
Yes, I'll move the recommendation as presented.
Thanks, Councillor Dickshay. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Scales. Councillor Dickshay, would you like to speak to the motion?
Yes, Mr Mayor. The thought that a small rural town would have access to a skate park of value nearly $1 million is was probably far-fetched. And I think the skating fraternity, both local and visitors in the future, will be ecstatic with the facility that gets built. And I think it's a fantastic opportunity to I think it's a great message that we send to the young people in particular in our community that they're valued.
Great. Thanks, Councillor Dickshay. Councillor Scales.
No thanks, Mr Mayor.
Anyone like to speak against the motion? Anyone else like to speak to the motion? Councillor Walkman.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. Again, I agree totally with Councillor Dickshay, but when you're building infrastructure, location, and I think we've got the right spot.
Anyone else like to speak to the motion? Well, in that case, we'll put the motion. All those in favour? Carried. Very exciting project. 13, land use planning. 13.1, land use planning report. Take this one as read. Any questions or clarification? Someone like to move a motion, or was that a question?
No question.
Oh.
No, look, and I know this will have to be taken on notice, but it just says here, in some cases, the technology being used to track permits is counting calendar days rather than business days. Now, I personally, if I'm told 60 days, I'm not counting business days. That's not my interpretation. I don't know if I agree with that, but anyway, that's what happens with technology.
I'll probably speak to that, Councillor Watman. So, in terms of the requirements on us and the statutory days, they're based on, we'll check this, but on business days, because the software that we currently use is calculating it on calendar days. And we've had this same conversation with the staff in terms of what expectations might be in our community. We are looking at moving to a new software application, which will hopefully alleviate that issue. But I think some communication to our permit applicants at least in terms of what those days represent is probably a good idea going forward.
Thank you, Madam CEO.
Any other questions or clarification? Someone like to move a motion? Councillor Waltman.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. I'd like to move that the report be noted.
Thanks, Councillor Waltman. A seconder. Councillor Anderson. Thank you. Councillor Waltman. Nothing. Councillor Anderson. Nothing. Anyone like to speak against the motion? Anyone else like to speak for the motion? In that case, we'll put the motion. All those in favour? Carried. 13.2, Section 173 agreement. Let's call on our CEO.
I'll speak briefly, thanks, Mr Mayor. So, councillors, the purpose of this report is to seek approval to sign and seal a Section 173 agreement with planning permit 2022-044, which was issued in September 22. It allowed for the re-subdivision of land into 2 lots in accordance with the plans, the endorsed plans, which I won't go through the details. There was a condition of the permit that required a Section 173 agreement be entered into with the responsible authority in relation to the access road, and that it would be constructed in accordance with the infrastructure design manual standard, and also that the landowner would ensure that the access road is always maintained as an all-weather access to the satisfaction of the responsible authority, and the responsible authority in this case is council. So that 173 agreement is presented for your consideration.
Thank you very much. Any questions or clarification? Someone like to move a motion? Councillor Dickshay.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'd like to move the recommendation as presented.
Thanks, Councillor Dickshay. A seconder. Councillor Scales. Would you like to speak to that, Councillor Dickshay?
No, thank you, Mr.
Councillor Scales. Anyone like to speak against? Else like to speak to the motion? Put the motion. All those in favour? Carried. 13.3 is an application refusal of development. I'll call on our CEO.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. Council, the purpose of this report is to seek a decision in relation to an application that we have received for the use and development of 2 dwellings for the land formerly known as Crown Allotment 19, Section E, Parish of Talgarno. The land is within the rural activity zone, and there are no overlays that affect this parcel of land. Our planning team have assessed the application and have identified several matters associated with the proposal, which include seeking to use an existing access that is not all-weather and accessible by emergency services vehicles in accordance with the requirements of the town planning scheme, and where clause 35.08-2 cannot be met, the use of the land for a dwelling is prohibited. So the recommendation before you is that the permit be refused based on the grounds that the development in the access track is proposed to be located on a steep slope. The applicant has not provided evidence that the existing access track proposed to be used can be used by emergency services vehicles, and the access track has not been constructed to an all-weather standard.
Thank you. Questions or clarification on that report, councillors? Nothing. Would someone like to move a motion? Councillor Waltman.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. I'd like to move that the decision be deferred until the April council meeting to enable further information to be obtained in relation to the access track.
Thanks, Councillor Waltman. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Scales. Thank you. Councillor Waltman, would you like to speak to that? Councillor Scales.
No, thanks, Mr Mayor.
Anyone like to speak against the motion? Anyone else like to speak to the motion? We'll put the motion. All those in favour? Carried. Woo. 14.1 Environmental Sustainability Report is presented quarterly and has been moved to the April 2023 for presentation. Economic and Tourism Development Report is presented biannually and will be presented in April 2023. 16's councillor reports. There's no councillor reports. 17 urgent business. No urgent business. 18 committee minutes. 18.1 is the Audit and Risk Committee. Call on our CEO.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. Council has presented for you in Appendix 14 are the minutes from the Audit and Risk Committee meeting, which was held on Friday the 17th of February 2023. We've provided the recommendations from the Audit and Risk Committee meeting for your consideration, and the recommendation before you is that the unconfirmed minutes of the Audit and Risk Committee meeting held on Thursday 17 March 22 be noted. Sorry, I think we've got the wrong date there. May I change that please to the 17th of February 2023, and that the recommendations from the Audit and Risk Committee meeting be considered. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions or clarification on that report? Someone like to move the motion? Councillor Waltman.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. There's two parts to the recommendation. I'd like to move the first part. The second part, I'd like the recommendation from the Audit and Risk Committee meeting held on the 17th of February be accepted and implemented.
Thanks. Councillor Waltman, do we have a seconder? Councillor Anderson. Councillor Councillor Waltman, would you like to speak to that motion?
Oh, yes, thanks, Mr Mayor. Look, the Audit and Risk Committee is a very important committee of council, and they do great work for us, and yeah, I'm just very happy to accept and implement their recommendations.
Thanks, Councillor Waltman. Councillor Anderson. Anyone like to speak against the motion? Anyone else like to speak to the motion? Then we'll put the motion. All those in favour? Carried. 19.1 is the Occupational Health and Safety Committee. Happy to take that as read.
Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Any questions or clarification, councillors? Nope. Would someone like to move a motion? Councillor Dickshay.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'd like to move that the report be noted.
Thanks, Councillor Dickshay. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Anderson. Would you like to speak to that?
No, thank you, Mr.
Councillor Anderson. You want to speak against? Speak to it. Put the motion. All those in favour? Carried. 20. Council policies. There are no policies for review or adoption this month. 21. Sealing of documents. Nothing. 22. Confidential. We do have a couple of confidentials. Would someone like to move a motion that the meeting be closed to the press and public to consider information considered confidential?